Look, I was a little bit unsure about this video, but thinking about it, as a Need for Speed fan, I'm dying for any little bit of information. And this is pretty significant. Here we go, full context. EA has had a focus of shifting away from licensed IP, so your Star Warses, your Disney games, and more recently, the WRC license. You remember that one game that EA made? Yeah, they're not making any more. Definitely not the last time you're gonna see this, but WRC is going back to Nacon. The license had moved to EA, but both parties were no longer interested in doing it, so they've gone back to Nacon and KT Racing. We were told that Need for Speed will return. This is from EA directly, and quite honestly, I've not seen this in the mass amount of layoffs that we've ever seen. EA has never said, oh, this series is definitely remaining. This series is definitely coming back. That just doesn't happen. All of Criterion is currently working on the next Battlefield game, but there are still plans for the studio to return to its racing roots at some point in the future. Again, we know this. I've never heard anything like it come from a studio. So Vince Zampella, the big Battlefield boss, is in charge of Need for Speed as well, because he owns the studio. So it's quite frankly up to him whether we get it or not. So if you've got his email, just send him like lots of begging emails. That is basically what we know for definite. All of these things are definite, they're fact, they're published, but there's been a new development which could just change everything, and it makes so much sense to the point where I felt like I had to talk to you guys about it. It just wouldn't make sense. We've spoken about this in the past as to why don't you do this? And now it seems that everything's just adding up slowly. The language of all of this is just so vastly different to anything we've normally seen in the series due to layoffs. And I just want to make it clear here, there unfortunately have been layoffs, and there is likely to be more layoffs. The whole industry is really going through just turbulence, like crazy turbulence as of recent, and it's ultimately, that's the whole world. The gaming industry just had a bit of a delay because, if anything, during COVID, the gaming industry got a bump, but now we're hitting reality, and each studio is going to do something different, and I think that's fine. But what's clear is we're not going to get that crash that a lot of us were not hoping for, but like we're leaning on it happening for a just full reset of this industry. There's much to talk about there. Nintendo, everyone included. I want to come back to this. For now, we are pausing development plans for future rally titles. That's such a significant wording that I feel like normally it would be like we're closing our doors. We're closing the doors. It would say things like that, or we're all moving to something else. We did get some further information and then confirmation through LinkedIn, which essentially suggested that a few people moved over to EA Sports FC, as in FIFA, which is why I was incredibly frustrated at the time. Using racing game talent, getting racing game talent, binning off racing game talent, or putting them on FIFA really made no sense. So what it turns out is that actually may not be the full picture. This is the exciting development, and it's in my bones. I Need for Speed in my bones. Okay, these are the 4 studios of Codemasters. As you can see, we've got the Southam studio, we've got the Birmingham studio, we've got the Malaysia studio, and we have the old Cheshire studio, which again had become part of Criterion in a way as a new remote office. I don't know if they've still got the office. It doesn't list it anymore, but they became like Criterion North is essentially what happened. And they were assisting on Need for Speed until they were now assisting on Battlefield. Anyway, these are all the studios that currently exist for Codemasters. The Southam studio is I want to say Southam. The Southam studio is the one that is on the chopping board right here. This one, as you can see, is working on the Dirt Rally and the WRC games. At least they were. Those are now paused. That's what they worked on. That's what they did. However, that is going to change. We knew that there was going to be layoffs. We knew that some were going to go to FIFA. But the confusion was always like, why aren't you using them on another racing? Put them in F1. Put them in something else. Surely something racing related that EA is sat on that could potentially, very potentially, be a good idea. And maybe even an original IP like they were thinking is probably the best for the future of the game. Okay, one thing to note is every single time I hear of studio closures or complete disbandments of things like Volition, or so many studios that we see just completely gutted or people moved, it shows how many job losses there are. They show numbers, they show figures. We always hear thousands or tens of thousands, or there needs to be like 25% workforce cut. Why do we never ever hear about it with UK studios? For one thing, I've always wondered, maybe there's laws protecting it as such, and maybe it's a little bit easier to be just quiet, hush about it. But I have seen some UK-based ones, so maybe it's just dependent on whether the actual studio has been fully decided and gutted yet. Because it sounds like maybe they kept working in the same location. Some people just, quite frankly, they didn't know what to do with them as such. And now they're maybe formulating a little bit more of a plan as to what to do with those people. Again, the original info suggests EA Sports FC, which again is just a fucking waste of talent. Okay, this first bit, incredibly sad. I just want to show the depth of the situation here. The Black Panther game, it's funny, I know. The Black Panther game reportedly has been cancelled and the studio has been closed, which means all of those people are out. And again, this aligns with EA's want to really not touch the licensed IP, more go with the original IP. But a complete closure of another studio, devastating. What a waste of time and talent. It's so insane. I really hope you guys are like, you figure this out, figure out new jobs, and again, find somewhere that actually has a vision and doesn't just rip things out last minute. This is our new information, and you know, at first I thought this is, I don't know, I really don't know, but the more I looked into it, the more I looked into the person that apparently leaked this stuff, a little bit more intrigue, a little bit more interest. Like, to be fair, there may be some validity here. There may be some logic here for the first time. Because surely, again, based on what I thought, they could move them to Need for Speed. They could move to F1. These are racing people that know about physics and terrains and like proper driving people. So why not make use of them on another IP that you said is #1 coming back or is currently working? Let's continue. The cancellation of Black Panther will not be the only thing. I've learned about 400 more layoffs are coming to EA, the complete closure of Codemasters' main headquarters. Now, to be clear, we already knew the main headquarters. I don't really know what that is, other than it could be the Southern studio that we're talking about. I believe that's their main location. But anyway, we already knew about that. That wasn't new information. This was assumed already. And those devs will be integrated into EA F1, and a new Need for Speed that's already in development. Okay, I'm not just saying bounce off the walls, because I absolutely would love to. But again, I'm a little bit skeptical on this for a couple of reasons. But it does make a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it? Hear me out, look. I've already laid down the groundwork. You understand my point. But suggesting they go to F1 and Need for Speed, racing talent. Duh! How did it take you this long? What? Huh? This would be amazing. This would be amazing to see. Reducing the amounts of job losses. Great news. And of course, having a team to build a Need for Speed game. For full clarity, I have not heard anything of the sort. What we do know is that the team was working on a live service at the end of Need for Speed Mobile. A very, very small team. Incredibly small. The amount of content they packed into that with such a small team was amazing. Incredible. I've never seen anything like it from such a small team. It almost makes me feel like smaller teams may be the way to go for a Need for Speed game. So let's say they keep some of those people that were the core people, the handling people, the environment people working on those games, and they transition them to Need for Speed. That makes sense. Huh? To not use them would be stupid. So this is the logical path. There is a potential that EA is actually using their logical, I want to say brain, but that would be too kind, I think. However, just before we get incredibly excited, yes, we've got the information that Need for Speed is paused. I don't know whether this is okay, let me show you. About the exact same time as this other piece of information came out, EA Entertainment focusing on fewer franchises moving forward, and I thought, well, that's just fucking Battlefield, isn't it? Oh god. So according to IGN's Rebecca Valentine, EA Entertainment president Laura Millet said that the company was going to be focusing more on a small handful of franchises. Per the report, Millet specifically says that Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, Apex Legends will be the key games moving forwards. There's not one mention of Need for Speed there, and again, it says per the report. Would they publish information if a Need for Speed game wasn't in motion already? These games, we know, are already in motion and they are public. If there's a chance that we're gonna get a Need for Speed game, it's still probably too early to say 100% that an idea has been confirmed. They would not publicize that information. Again, it sounds like this is an internal document. It doesn't say it's a public document, but there's definitely some thought already as to what the next game is supposed to be. I mean, let's be real, most people like us, we're like, oh, it's another Need for Speed. Maybe they're gonna do the new and interesting ways that they mentioned that it's gonna return at. But I would argue that this is a potential counter, but at the same rate, they're not going to publish that if they've not approved a new Need for Speed to be made. We know that that's not been happening. They've been working on Battlefield. There's a slimmer of a chance there that, again, the reason it's not there is for one reason, but it aligns with the idea of original IP. It covers the racing game base of original IP. They can't ignore the success of Forza Horizon 5 on the PlayStation. Like, this is pretty crazy to see. Hunter posted this: Forza Horizon 5 has sold more copies on PS5 than Assassin's Creed Shadows. The overall look is that Assassin's Creed Shadows did very well, better than expected, considering the woke war on games, because Yasuke's in it. Shut the fuck up. Yasuke's the best character in it. I'm just gonna say it. Anyway, Forza Horizon 5 is the Xbox's fastest selling game. You can already see 2 million copies sold. This is not including Game Pass. I think they'll sell more copies on PlayStation than they have on the Xbox Series consoles. I don't think that's a question considering Game Pass, but that's more money in the pocket for the future of the Forza Horizon franchise. So anyway, 2 million apparently. Indiana Jones be struggling. I mean, it's doing fine, but like, it's not Lara Croft, is it? Come on. This is crazy. Like, EA cannot be ignoring this. A game that's not sports, that is racing, arcade fun. Look at that. Now, the worst case situation here, EA could look at this and be like, we need to make a festival race. Hell no, then I don't want it. Quite frankly, if you're going to give us another festival racer, I don't want it. Can't really argue with the facts, though. Forza Horizon doing really well. The Crew Motorfest doing really well. You know, the argument could be those were proper live service games, so... And they got proper advertising, so again, I really wanted to bring this to you. Just, again, cautionary. I'm not going to go, oh my god, this is actually happening, because, honestly, it's very hit or miss. A game hasn't likely been approved. What they're doing with those staff members, I don't really know. They may have already been let go, but it seems a lot more closed doors, like, shh, hush hush, until the decisions are done. We know that some people, because of LinkedIn, have already moved, but what are those other people doing? They very much could just be still using that building and working on Need for Speed. Or, again, they could be laying the groundwork, tooling. It takes time to make these decisions. I understand that, I appreciate that, and I'm grateful, at least, that it's just not a complete gutting. And again, the language of Need for Speed will return. The timing makes sense. I mean, if they start working on something now, and they take the usual timeline of a Need for Speed game over 2 years, they'll still manage to get it to release on this gen, and actually at the peak of the generation, just like with Need for Speed Heat. It's also the counterpoint that if this game failed, then that would completely be the end of Need for Speed. EA would gut it and it would be done. But I think they realize, and they are realizing, that they need to branch out as much as possible, but maybe without spending the massive licensing fees. I mean, the problem is Need for Speed does require licensing quite significantly. They've got what they wanted from Codemasters and gutted everything else. Again, what they were aiming for is to get the talent, because Need for Speed struggled. It actually really struggled to find people to work on those Need for Speed titles. They struggled with the Ghost Game Studio. They struggled with the Criterion Studios. Those studios hovered around 120. People saw it as a niche, essentially, and they weren't sure how big it could go. But clearly, Need for Speed Heat was a surprise success. They didn't expect it, and they clearly, I imagine, regret the decision of closing Ghost Games. That was based on Need for Speed Payback's failure with the microtransactions, which again was an EA initiative. So once again, EA has no brain. I mean, the company, of course, is a company. But all of this information has been laid out to you. It's your decision whether you believe this to be a potential for the future of Need for Speed or not. I'm leaning on, I would say on the scale of 50-50, I'm looking at like 60-40. It sounds like something's happening here. There's a potential, just to throw that in there in case you didn't know, because we've spoken about this before, but Battlefield is ready, okay? The game is ready to go, so the people that were working on Need for Speed previously could head up a studio ran by them and then tooled by the Cody's people. There's always been that potential there. I just don't know why they didn't do it any sooner. I mean, there's also the chance that they could completely swap and all of Criterion becomes Need for Speed. There's a whole bunch of stuff that could be the case, but I'm intrigued, I'm excited, but not too excited. Don't run home and tell everyone that there's going to be a new Need for Speed game. That's not what I'm saying, but it just sounds like there's a thought process going on in that brain of EA's that doesn't think normally.